I just want to spend a few minutes going through the GCSE History course that we offer at Brine Leas. So GCSE History includes 4 modules, of which you'll study 2 in Year 10 and 2 in Year 11. So as you can see from the list here, in Year 10 you would study Restoration of Charles II, so between 1660 and 1685, Germany 1890 to 1945, and then in Year 11 you would move on to looking at the development of medicine over 1,000 years, and also conflict and tension 1918 to 1939. So each of those 4 modules are worth 25% of your overall GCSE grade. So Restoration England then, 1660 to 1635. So as part of this option then, you're studying what life was like under Charles II and what sort of king Charles II was. You're probably quite familiar with Charles II from the song King of Bling for the Horrible History series. So it's that king that we're looking at here. So as part of this course, we're looking at a number of different things. So we study kind of social aspects. So we look at the Great Fire of London, we look at theatre, we even touch on fashions of the period. We're looking at architecture. We're also looking at the development of science during this period. We're also looking at the economic side of England in this period. So we look at the beginning of the slave trade. We look at the beginning of the British Empire and the challenges faced by Britain. So we also look at piracy and the development of piracy in the Caribbean and how that affects Britain. And we also look at the political aspect, so how Charles struggled to rule England. So we look at the Catholic plots he faced to overthrow him, for example. So this is a really, really enjoyable module, which will probably open up a period of history which you're not very familiar with. So the third module then is Germany 1890 to 1945. And so this period is looking initially at the Kaiser Wilhelm II, and it's looking at how he took Germany into World War I. So it touches on the causes of World War I, but also what it was like in Germany during this period. So the kind of the patriotic feeling that the German people had going into World War I. And then have a look at the consequences of World War I. So how did the German people react to the loss of World War I? What was it like to live in Germany in this period? And ultimately, how did that help Adolf Hitler to be elected into power? And once we have a look at how Adolf Hitler's been elected into power, we then move on to what it was like to live in Nazi Germany. So we look at different groups of people, so the Jews, for example, women, young people, German workers. So what sort of experiences did they have under Nazi rule? And how successfully did the Nazis rule Germany? Did they maintain control throughout? Was there opposition to the Nazis? And so that takes us then up to 1945. So then in Year 11, we move on to looking at our thematic study. So our thematic study is looking at the development of medicine. So we're looking at kind of public health, really. So some of the examples of things that we might study as part of this are conditions in medieval towns, the Black Death, the Great Plague of 1666, the Great Stink in Victorian London, so when it was so horrible and disgusting with all the amount of sewage they had that was dumped into the Thames, that rich people used to leave London in the summer because it was so smelly. So what did the government do about this? Discovery of vaccinations, so right through from Edward Jenner's vaccination for smallpox that he developed in the 18th century, right up into modern vaccinations. And then we also look at the role of the government in terms of helping people's public health. So the establishment of the NHS would be another topic that we study. So there's quite a lot of topics as part of this, so that was just a few examples. And then finally, fourth module is tension and conflict. So this is looking at the period between 1918 and 1939, looking at the causes of World War II. So this is looking at international relations between the world's bigger powers. So looking at Britain, France, Germany and America, and having a look at why war broke out in 1939. So what was it that broke down between all these different countries that ultimately led to World War II? So this is looking at, for example, Hitler's foreign policy. So this fourth module ties in very well with the second module that you will have done on Germany between 1870 and 1945. So in terms of the assessment then, so there's two papers that you study. So the first paper you'll do is looking at international history. So there are your two modules, so Germany and also the conflict and tension module. So it's a 2-hour exam with 50% of your GCSE. Paper 2 is the British side, so it's the development of medicine and also the restoration. So again, it's a 2-hour exam and it's worth the remaining 50%. So both of these are at the end of your course, so there's no coursework. Okay, so why study history? Many people, when they think of studying history, think, oh, you just become a history teacher if you study history. But actually, history has got many, many skills which are required in professional jobs. So it teaches you the skills of analysis, evaluation, and research. So this graph that you can see here is quite useful because this shows you what history graduates go into once they finish university. So as you can see from that, the biggest area that most history graduates go into is actually law. So just under a quarter of all history graduates go to law, and that's because the skills required in law are skills that you would develop studying a history degree. So, and then after that, the next one is finance and financial services. So 18% of students who've studied history go on into the financial sector. And then as you can see, education makes up 12% of it, so not a huge percentage there compared to all the other areas that people go into. And so therefore, if you study history, it is quite a broad subject, which does give you a lot of avenues into a lot of other careers. Okay, so take history then. If you're interested in the past, you like to write, or you don't mind writing at least, and you're willing to work hard. So there are a lot of facts to learn as part of history, and to be successful in it, you do need to make sure you know these facts. Usually, if you have an interest in it though, these facts you can remember quite easily. So further information then, there's a few things you can do. So you can speak to your teachers individually, have a look at some year 10 books, possibly not at the moment but maybe speak to some year 10s who are already doing history, or siblings who may also have done history. And then also you could ask your teacher if you could see on the projector some of the year 10 lessons that we teach and that we've taught this year, or even year 11 lessons. So I hope that I've given you some things to think about. History is a really, really interesting subject, and to be honest, I don't understand anybody who doesn't love it. So I hope that you'll choose to do history.